In 2018, I had this great idea to start a book club, mostly because I love books. I particularly love audiobooks, and I love forcing them on other people and then talking about them. And so I started this book club, and I just put it out there on Instagram. I said, hey, read this book, and then let's come together and chat about it. And I wanted to share those chats with you here on my YouTube channel. So I hope you enjoy this video. Hi everyone. Tonight we are discussing this book, Look at You Now, by Liz Pryor. Liz is going to hop on and talk with us tonight, which I am so excited about because I have never talked to, I've read a lot of memoirs. I actually really like memoirs, but I've never talked to the author of a memoir, and I have so many questions for Liz, and I know you have so many questions for Liz too. Liz is an author and the mom of 3 adult children. She made it all the way through. Those of you who know me, I have 3 kids, and I have a teenager, a pre-teenager, and a 3rd grader. And so I am in the knee deep in motherhood. And so Liz has made it to the other side. I know you never stopped being a mother, obviously, but you're not driving people around anymore. And so that's amazing. And she lives in LA, and she was the advice guru on Good Morning America for a while. So if we have time, we can also ask Liz if she has any, if we have any advice questions for Liz. My sister Emily says that we might not make it. And some days I feel like that, like either I'm not going to make it, or they're not going to make it, or I'm going to kill one of them, or they're going to kill me. I don't know. But pretty much everybody does make it out. So there's that. Okay, so Liz is the author of this book, Look at You Now. She's also the author of a book about friendship, and which is another topic that I love and that I'm very interested in. I think I have a kid about to come in. Abby, you want to say hi?
Hi. Oh gosh, I look terrible.
Abby just got home from softball practice. Everybody tell Abby hi. Wait, look for it.
What?
Let's see. Hind's feet on high places. Somebody's recommending. Oh, there you go. You got to wave.
Hello.
Oh, there's Miss Amy Groeschel. Hi, Amy.
Oh, hi.
Amy, you would love this book. You really have to read this book that we're about to talk about. Okay, everybody's saying hi. Say bye.
Bye.
Abby just got home from softball practice. Her dad took her. Okay, so this book, Look at You Now, is Liz's journey. She calls it How Keeping a Teenage Secret Changed My Life Forever. But I also think there was another subtitle that was something about my journey from shame to strength. That was in my audiobook. And so basically it's about Liz, and when she was 17 years old, she found herself pregnant. And her mom and dad were Catholic, and it was in 1979, which would have been right at the tail end of the era of sending your child away if they were an unwed mother, to give their baby up for adoption. And so Liz's mom is a Catholic woman and feels like that if anybody ever finds out that this is going to ruin her daughter's life, so she finds a facility where Liz can go and live and have her baby until the baby comes, and then give the baby up for adoption. And so our story basically picks up because Liz finds herself at a locked facility for basically delinquent pregnant girls. So whether they were in juvenile hall or foster care, or found them, one of them was a girl that was just like roaming on the streets, I think. These girls were in a locked facility, and they were some rough girls. And Liz came from a really nice neighborhood, nice family. We get to walk with Liz through this journey, and it is such a great story. First of all, sorry if it was a little bit of a shocker. I forgot. I read this book a couple years ago, and it just stuck with me. I remembered the story. I remembered the girls. I remembered the title and why Liz titled the book Look at You Now. it just really stuck with me. And so as I've been experimenting with this book club, I've not only been choosing books that I've read recently, but I've been going back to some of my favorite books. So I read this book a couple years ago, told my sister Emily, you have to read this book, told my mom, you have to read this book. And my friend Lisa Hughes, she read it. Those are my people. We all kind of read the same book. So we love this book, and I picked this one, and it had been so long that I decided I was going to read it again, and I was going to listen to it again, which I don't do that a whole lot. And I love this book as much the second time as I did the first time. I listened to it on Audible both times, and it's read by Liz, and she does such a great job reading the book. I don't know. I loved all the characters. So let's talk about the characters, because I want to hear who some of your favorite characters were. Let me know. Besides Liz, obviously she's her favorite character in the book, but who were some of your favorite characters? Okay, Ashley. Yes. Ashley says, I could not listen to it around the house without my AirPods in. There was some language in this book, and I forgot until I read it the second time. There was a lot of language, but didn't you feel like the language, even though a little shocking, it was kind of appropriate for girls who are living in those situations and have been brought up the way that they were, for them to use language like that. But yeah, it was definitely an AirPod type book. Okay, so everybody is chiming in. Our two favorite girls, Tilly and Nellie, they were amazing. You just loved them. Yes, Marianne says the language is harsh but appropriate given the situation. Yeah, totally agree. Ashley says she didn't mind it. She just has little ears around the house. Same. Okay, Tilly and Nellie, you guys, I loved these girls. You had so much compassion for them, and they felt like such real life characters, real life girls that I think Nellie was the girl who was raped by her stepfather or foster father. Tilly was really young, but she had an older boyfriend. Marianne says she liked Ren too. Jill brought some solidness. Jill comes in kind of towards the end, and just all of the characters, even though they weren't necessarily prominent or the main characters, they were so round, and they were so beautiful in the way that you just rooted for them. Emily says you wished you could have them at your home and love on them. It's true. You were so, when Liz first gets to the facility, and she's just devastated. She's scared. She's crying. And all of a sudden, you're wanting Liz, you're like, to reach out to these girls, and she does. And she kind of goes beyond herself and realizes how privileged she is, and how much these girls have been through than her. And you just love it. You love their special relationship. And but can we please talk about Dorothy? Because I thought that Liz did such a great job painting her mother. And if you listened to the audiobook, Liz does the best impression of her mom. And Liz, if you're watching this, you are going to have to do an impression of your mom. Because I loved how you didn't paint your mom as this horrible mother villain. And yet you didn't paint her as someone that you felt sorry for her. You felt sorry for the way that her life had turned out. You felt sorry for how the workload that she had and all the things she was trying to juggle and raise her kids. You just had like a sense of compassion and understanding for her, which I thought was so well done. And her voices, her Katharine Hepburn voice, and her when she does the W's, what is going on? She was doing the best that she could, and you did such a great job making us not hate her for putting you in this facility. So Dorothy was actually one of my favorite characters in the book. You just wanted more of her. So Lee was Liz's father. And then you've got the wife. And I love how for the first several paragraphs mentions of the wife is we don't know her name. She's called the wife, my dad's wife, and she's called what was the other thing? Farrah Fawcett. They call her Farrah Fawcett. So you can just picture everything. Who else do I have? And okay, so I wrote down Lee, the wife, Tilly, Nellie, Jill. We've talked about all of them. Mrs. Graham and Alice. Love them. And then Dr. Dick. And that was so funny. And every time they called him Dr. Dick, you just smiled while you were laughing, while you were listening, or while you were reading, because he really was not a very nice person. And so I loved the scene where Dorothy puts on her Katharine Hepburn voice and gets the doctor to give Liz the medication when she's in labor. That was one of my favorite scenes. Oh, I have to tell you two things. Okay, I'm not going to read the quote yet. So how many of you, I don't know how many of you actually read the book versus listened to it, but the first time that I listened to the audiobook, there was an afterword. The second time that I listened to the audiobook, there was no afterword. And in the afterword, Liz tells you why she called the book Look at You Now. And I'm so mad at Audible. I am a huge Audible fan, okay? But I am very mad at Audible for some reason. They have taken out the afterword, which is the whole crux of the story. And so for those of you who listen to it, I am going to read to you what Liz says in the afterword. First of all, you guys, look at this. There's a picture. That's Liz on her high school graduation day. And she says this: 36 years ago, I made a promise to my mother that I would never tell anyone about this story. I kept that promise my whole life. That's incredible to me. I never told my siblings or my friends until this book. In 2011, before my mother died, I asked her what she would think about me writing this story. She answered, well, I can't do a Dorothy voice, okay? But just picture your Dorothy voice. Well, you do whatever you want, sweetheart. Look at you now. I thought that's such a beautiful picture of the whole subtitle of this book, From My Journey from Shame to Strength. Her mom was saying, look at your life now. It's your story to share. Please share it. And I just thought that was so great. So here's my question. Emily did the audiobook. You didn't know that, Emily? I can't. And Ashley, you did it. I know, you guys. I'm going to have to send a letter to Audible and tell them they have to fix this. Okay. So here's my favorite quote from the book. And it comes at the very end. Liz has had the baby. She's gone home. And she has to walk in her graduation in order to get her diploma, which is really strange. Because, here's this child who has literally done no schoolwork for 5 months. And the only thing she has to do to graduate is to walk, which is kind of absurd and just goes to show you the whole institution thing can be a little off sometimes. But so she goes to the graduation and, obviously she's nervous. She hasn't seen anybody. Nobody knows where she's been. She's 4 days postpartum, you guys, which, yeah, those of you who have had a baby just know 4 days postpartum, not your best body. And she's in this white dress. And so she says that she kept her head steady. And then it says this. She says, I looked away up at the podium where we would be receiving our diplomas. I didn't feel like crying or running. Instead, I felt something strong, something that was stopping the hurt from seeping in. I didn't know until that very second that I even had that strength. That line in this book was everything to me because, yeah, as some of you are commenting, some of the kids booed her and just to have the strength to stay and to walk and to get her diploma. But I love how she said, I didn't know until that very second that I even had that strength. I have so many questions for you, Liz. Oh, look at all the hearts. Everybody's ready for you. Okay. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Holly. You're so cute.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate all the reading and the great commenting, and your audience is generous and compassionate. So,
well, we loved your book.
Thank you.
We really, really loved your story, and
I've never listened to someone talking about it and not been able to talk with you. So you're talking, I'm like, and then I'm not on there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have so many questions for you.
Sure.
I've been talking to a couple of my friends that have also read the book. And so there's like a general consensus. I'm sure that you have answered these questions a million times, but inquiring minds need to know a couple of things. Okay.
Of course.
So first of all, did you ever contact any of the girls?
No.
And like, was there a reason why? Were you not able to, or you just didn't feel like it was good timing, or?
Well, it was a different decade, first of all, so it wasn't as easy as give me your cell phone. Mm-hmm. I was in there anonymously. I was Liz P to everybody. The only person who got my last name I gave it to was Tilly. But, the worlds were even more disparate than you describe. There was, we didn't exchange information. And as life went on, no, I never heard from any of them.
Huh.
So I can't report how they're doing.
And even on Facebook, have you ever tried to find them on Facebook?
I have. I only know one of their last names, and I've found nothing.
Well, maybe they'll find you. Hopefully they'll find you.
I'm pretty easily findable.
Yes, yes, you are. Okay, so next question. Did you ever talk to the baby's father again, or have a relationship with him, or?
Oh, he was, I got pregnant the first time I had sex. He was my high school love. And we have remained friends for 40 years. Yes, he was never out of my life. He's such a kind, wonderful. In fact, I physically flew to Chicago and brought him this manuscript before Random House published it, because I just said, here, you probably need to read it. He's just been lovely. He's just been fantastic. He's a good man.
So the only people who knew that you were pregnant, who like officially knew, was the boyfriend,
my mother, my father, and my boyfriend. And what you didn't reveal here was, there's a lot of comments about, the kids at school knew. Well, here was the thing. Yes, people speculate. And then, back then it was lie till you die. But more importantly, my mother didn't just say, you may never speak about it again. She said, this is the story we're going to tell. You were sick, you were in the Mayo Clinic, and you're going to stick with that. What was I sick with? She never quite told me. So, of course, I'm better. You're just better, Liz. So,
please keep doing her voice, because it's amazing.
So basically, yes, the kids at school speculated. But you know how that goes. I mean, that doesn't necessarily 100% mean that they knew. But, to return to that and know that you have to uphold a lie, something you've been told not to do your whole life, but you're so bad your Catholic parents tell you should.
Right.
So it was confusing for me, because I think I was booed because we lied, because I pretended that didn't happen, because they speculated. And, I think the biggest shock usually when people hear about this story is that my own siblings, my 7 brothers and sisters, and my closest friends didn't know this. So, the whole notion of obviously living with a secret for 38 years, I've written about it so much. And the best way to describe it is, it's like it becomes an appendage or an organ. It's just such a deep and visceral and real part of you that, writing the book, and, I waited. I have 3 children. I love how you opened this, because I think it all the time in my heart. I made it. I really made it. I still made it. And
so there's hope for those of us who are in the thick of it.
My youngest is 19. I will always feel whatever, but I made it. And it was really my children who inspired me in my soul to want to tell the truth here. My responsibility as a mother then was to the kids. And so I individually and independently told them, because they were all different ages, just as my daughter got to the age of sex and love, is when I really thought, okay, I'm going to see but I needed to know if this was something they'd be okay with, they might be embarrassed about. I had to really resonate the story with them until I would feel comfortable even trying to sell that book. So my kids were my wingmen and my supporters, and it's hilarious because language was a difficulty for me. I had, a 12-year-old, and, honestly, I didn't let him read the whole book till later. So he knew the process and the concepts. So I really appreciate your heart on my mother.
Yeah. And
your readers. I've done a lot of book clubs and spoken a lot about this book. And I've never seen such an accumulation of sort of compassion and big-hearted attitude. I understand 100% when people say, particularly mothers say, how can you do that? How could you leave it? But if you really read and you really listen to what's being told, the editor of Random House said to me, Liz, if you had written this book typically, because we could all imagine what someone might feel, that it wouldn't have really been the story that it is. And, I've had some conflicting discussions. At a writing program I spoke, and they were just telling me I must have latent anger and I'm not in touch with it. And I really had to go into how my parents were such good, loving, wonderful teachers to me in my life. They taught me to tie my shoes and to be a good person and to be kind. And they were the only two people in the world who knew where I was. So in retrospect, I don't think I could have been angry. I just don't think I could have emotionally afforded it. But I still have such deep respect for how adamant my mother was about hoping and wanting my life to go well. And of course, later, I had to call, she died, and I called her best friend. And I said, I don't know if my mother ever talked to you about when I was in high school. And boy, did she pour it out and tell me that my mother cried every night, all sorts of things I hadn't known. She said, Liz, imagine what it would be like if you had to, make a decision like that. And it was so difficult for her. So that Easter scene in the book, when I went, as a mother, I kind of look at that scene and think, well, what does she do? Abandon the twins, or me, or, so it was very difficult for Dorothy. And I appreciate that these readers really saw that.
Man, and I kind of already said this, but you don't know what you would do.
No.
If in any situation. And I think that's the problem with moms today.
Yeah.
Is that we are so judgmental of each other. And I think a lot of times it's because it's rooted in shame of the decisions that our own children are making. So instead of dealing with our own decisions and our own mothering and our own children, it's just easier to point a finger at somebody else. And it's a different time. I mean, that was the thing that's so fascinating to me is that was the very end of like an era of if you got pregnant, you went away. Yeah. And you kind of were like caught in the middle. And yeah, I think it's actually really beautiful though that you had so much compassion for your mom. And I know at some point you said, I don't know if it was in the afterword or the afterword, that neither of them are on the Audible copy, and I'm still really upset about that.
I'm going to look into that. I didn't know that, Holly.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize it until a couple of days ago. But they're like, you said that there, in some ways you were even closer to your mother afterward because it was almost like she was one of the only people who knew.
Yes. And she would, if I brought it up, she would say, You mean what we went through, Liz? No, Mom. No, what I went through. Yeah, interesting. And I like these comments about, I had such a great relationship with my dad. I really, respected him and loved him in a different way. But what I was going to tell you, mom to mom, is that there is no question when things happen to us in our life, and we all know this, that you don't know when something happens, why it happens. And I was very, very young, so I didn't have sort of the wisdom in retrospect that I have now. But there's just no question that experience defined truly it transformed my entire soul, but really defined who I became as a mother.
Yeah.
The most important job I'll ever have on the planet.
Yeah.
I just know that having to give away a baby to strangers and put it up in God's hands to make sure that would be okay, that the value of my children and them being in my life, I know that must have fundamentally shifted everything for me as a mom. You know what I mean?
Totally. So, okay, that's my next burning question.
Yeah.
Did you truly not even know the sex of the baby?
No, I did.
Okay.
I did. I didn't reveal. I wanted this book, to me, it was the journey and the awakening and the transformation of a young girl into what life and people really were. I came from you put it nicely, and I would argue that still people would send their children away who got pregnant. They would do different things. Where I come from, in the bouge world, you don't send your child to high school pregnant. It just doesn't happen. And I've been at this, and even though it was a different generation, I would argue that section of our country, though, that culture of people in this country still hide it. However, maybe I wouldn't be in a locked facility, but I mean, where was I before that?
The baby. So
the baby. We decided not to reveal the sex because it seemed superfluous. The baby and the boyfriend seem superfluous to sort of the journey of the story.
And that's really what makes a great book, is being able to let go of information that you have just because it doesn't add to the story.
Exactly. So it was a boy.
Okay.
And so Holly, I haven't said this publicly, but there's been a surfacing.
Wow.
And I am in the middle of a sequel. And I'm going to give you a teaser. The very first contact I had with this 39-year-old boy, gosh, Liz, you must have been 3 when you had that kid. The very first thing he said to me was he emailed me and said, I had established this is, blah, 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 blah. And he said, wow, our birth stories sound really, to line up. If this is you, I've been waiting my whole life to say, thank you for giving me my life.
Oh my gosh.
So that has been incredibly crazy, beautiful, and I'm so grateful. And it's all positive. It's been, I learned when I was 17 in a small way that it's much easier to just walk through the fire. Don't walk around it. And with this guy, I just, everybody, and there's so many sad and difficult and scary stories, but I just knew in my heart, this is what we have to do. So I met him, and, my life has shifted from it, and it's going to be a new chapter.
That's amazing. And thank you for telling us, because we were dying to know. Okay. So, I want to go back to the lie.
Sure.
Because, my sister Emily is always she's always in the book club, and, she and I are really close. We're 18 months apart. She just asked, when is the sequel and what is the title? So we're really close. So if that had happened to one of us, there is absolutely no way that she would not have said to me, you were not sick, or what were you sick with? Like, she would not have drilled me with 1,000 questions.
This is such a good question. And I hope, okay, I'm going to put it to you this way. We're 7 kids in 9 years. And I am, terribly the middle child. I have 2 brothers at the top. And then 2 sisters who are a year apart. Then there's 2 years, and there's me. And then there's twins.
Okay.
So, like, they were mom, dad, and baby when we were little, and I was the maid. I didn't have... Everybody had a baby and a mom and a dad. And critically, my older sisters were in college. Okay.
My sister just commented, she said, I would have hunted you down.
Well, maybe I wish she was my sister. My older sisters were in college. So understand, in the defense of my older siblings, they weren't home.
Right.
So, when they call home and my mother says she's sick, they worry, but they don't experience perhaps what the twins experienced, who are a couple of years younger than me. And honestly, what you described there, I would have done with one of the twins, but they were younger than me. And they were, and that was a very difficult and tumultuous time in all of our lives with my parents divorced and my mother. And so really, she just kind of got me out of there. And I went to college. You can imagine, like, particularly my brothers, both of them were like, you could have come and lived with me. They wish they'd known.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was their reaction? I mean, did you tell them before you wrote the book, or you just gave them a copy of the book?
I gave them all a manuscript. And I, verbally said I was writing something. And don't think my little sisters, who the poor things had to probably deal with so much gossip, about me. But they never talked to me about it. I always felt terribly guilty about that. Yeah, they have support groups for memoirists. It was a difficult reveal, familially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was, because everybody has their own journey through this stuff, and my little sisters, were trekking through different stuff at that time. So it was difficult, but then my father is still alive. And, halfway through the book, he wrote and said, man, you're a really good writer. And I'm 6'3", not 6'2". So he was supportive. And I think it's been, for me, it's been critically so fundamentally important to me, regardless of response to this book, that I have modeled to my children that regardless of what happens to us in life, you can find a way to walk through it, to stand behind it, walk through it, and get to the other side. And that was my goal.
And you did that so beautifully. And really, those are my favorite kinds of books to read.
Me too.
Is books where somebody overcame something.
Yes. And, well, triumph or the trials of triumph or whatever.
Yes. I read a lot of Holocaust books, and, I love books like that because it, somewhere deep inside of your subconscious, I think it plants a seed of, I can do hard things. And, and I just thought you did it's just such a beautiful story. Okay. So I have about 5 minutes, and I want to ask you, okay, so this is what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. You called this book Your Journey from Shame to Strength. Mm-hmm. And I like how you call it a journey. But were there times where the shame, it wasn't like you had shame and then all of a sudden now you have strength?
No, that's not how shame works.
It ebbs and flows. So can you talk about that for a little bit, and how you were able to overcome the shame even throughout all the different stages of your life?
Yeah, I think the positive is that when you live with something like this deep inside, and as I grew up and realized I had to build on a muscle inside of myself that rooted for me, that said, regardless of this having happened, you are a good person. And that was all on my own. And I would say that muscle and that exercising of that muscle pretty much turned me into and defined sort of the woman that I became. So I would have to be grateful for that. The shame itself, I'm still, you know, you don't write a book and the shame goes away.
Right.
It doesn't go up on a shelf. I'm still working through, I've come so far and realized that like my nuclear, you know, the family I come from, I'll always feel the shame when I go home. It will never go away. But I did go home and I did speak at the local, you know, bookstore, and I was able to face the elephant in the room and talk about the things that matter to me, and the lack of judgment, the ability to really look at people and not know what they've been through before you decide who you think they are. Right.
Yeah.
But the overall, the shame, the experience, the journey has clearly was my fate. This is, you know, and I believe that. It doesn't matter if other people don't believe it. I have to live within myself. And I am through beating myself up. That stopped a long time ago. And I'm honestly close to being finished with trying to convince people that I'd like to be seen as the woman who is strong and kind rather than the person who had the baby when she was 17.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's been a long journey, and there's more coming, and I'm welcoming it. But I'd like to encourage people. You know, people have all different versions of secrets. The way that they hold secrets inside it doesn't have to have anything to do with having a baby. And those people come out to me. They write me on my website and they say this, and this, because truth and strength and resilience begets truth and strength and resilience. And you know what I mean? Like people listen and go, you know, I think I want to talk about my drinking. I think I want to talk about my child who's whatever. And I just noticed that it's like a contagion. Yeah. And I like that.
And I like how I didn't get a chance to pick up your book that you wrote about friendship, but I'm really big on female friendships.
Me too.
And I think that there's a release of, like what you just said. There's a quote. One of my friends says, shame like mold grows in the dark. And when you bring a truth to light, when you have a friend that you can safely bring your story to, that is when healing can begin. Exactly. Is when you and I think that most people find when you share your story with someone, you actually find that, oh, I'm not crazy. Like, exactly. You have a story, we all have.
We do.
Shame,
it's a lot to ask of a kid to have to process something so significant. This was a life. Yeah. You know, you can't just walk away and pretend that didn't happen. You can try. Yeah. But it was too big for that. So the reckoning had to go on inside of me. Yeah. And luckily, you know, I didn't perish. I think I flourished. Yeah. Despite the whole thing. And I don't know from where that comes. Yeah. Maybe I'm lucky.
I think you said it well. Let me see if I can find it. Well, you talked about in the second afterward. There are two afterwards in this book, but in the second one, you shared about your divorce, and you said, when you encounter the worst kind of fear imaginable, you make it through to the other side. You develop an indelible, permanent strength, like you were sharing. And you said, I remember the fear of facing the world at home, the fear of lying to everyone I knew, and the fear of the shame that was now a part of me. But my strength inside was bigger than all of it. When I left the facility as a 17-year-old girl, I felt like a superhero. When I walked through those steel doors for the last time, I knew I could get through anything. And then you go on to talk about how it's that strength that carried you through the other seasons and the difficulties of your life. And
exactly. And that is true.
It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so do we have a title for the new book coming out?
We
or
don't.
A date? Okay.
We don't, but another piece of news is that Sony Television and a network have bought this book, and it will be a television show.
Oh, that's awesome. I saw a little hint of that when I was researching, but you never know if that stuff is true. So yeah. Yay!
So it can sort of live on in a different medium, which can be so interesting. And then you can see this person play Dorothy.
I cannot wait. to see Dorothy come to life.
Yeah.
So thank you for getting on with us.
Really, really nice to meet you. And
Nice
appreciate
to meet you too.
you bringing me on.
Yeah, and we really loved your story. So you're an
Thank you so
incredible
much.
writer. So I hope that you keep writing more and more, because you have such an incredible way of painting a beautiful story. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good
Appreciate
night.
it. Okay, good night.